Hello, I'm Natalie Deal, and my film for our mini project was the documentary Jesus Camp. The 2006 documentary follows Pentecostal children's pastor Becky Fisher as she prepares for and runs the Kids on Fire Evangelical Christian Summer Camp, which is ironically held in Devil's Lake, North Dakota, although Pastor Becky is based in Colorado Springs. In addition, the filmmakers also focus on the lives of several of the youth campers, Levi, Rachel, and Victoria, before they attend the camp. And it also includes segments of Mike Papantonio, the host for Air America's show Ring of Fire, where he comments on Fisher's camp and has her on the show and talks about evangelical Christians. So the documentary relates to our course material for several reasons. Primarily, it focuses on one important and growing faction in American politics, evangelical Christians. So it's mentioned that they are 25% of the American population, and they are described as being very tenacious, and that they elbow themselves into American politics and want to build a government that they're comfortable with, and are chipping away at the separation between church and state. I thought this related a lot to Mr. Baker's example of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, and that they're only 1/3 of the population, but they're so tenacious in getting their views reflected in legislation. It's sort of similar to evangelical Christians, who are only 1/4 of the population, a minority, but they're really involved and active in political issues that they're concerned about. So we see political involvement with the evangelical Christians, believing that President Bush has brought credibility back to Christianity. And it's mentioned in the film that the president sort of owes evangelicals because they were so instrumental in getting him reelected, because they're a huge chunk of voters. And with the nomination of Samuel Alito Jr. to replace Sandra Day O'Connor, this was back in 2006, it's sort of hinted at that this was a move for him to please this voter base of evangelicals. This faction has a lot of sway. And it's mentioned that evangelicals are very supportive of George Bush. Pastor Ted Haggard, who is the president of the National Association of Evangelicals, which represents 30 million people, talks to President Bush and his advisors every Monday. So we see a leader of the evangelical church being really involved in politics. And we also see a mom who's homeschooling her children talking about global warming and how it doesn't exist, and that science is wrong. So we have evangelicals taking an interest in political issues such as global warming and legislation pertaining to that, and also legislation pertaining to abortion. During the camp, the kids are talked to about abortion, and some of the campers go to Washington, D.C. to protest. So these are just some of the issues that evangelical Christians are involved in, and this is how the film sort of pertains to politics. It showcases this. So, some of the facts that the documentary revealed. I learned that evangelicals believe that to obtain salvation they must be born again by accepting Jesus as their Savior, and 43% are born again before the age of 13. I also learned that 75% of homeschooled kids in the U.S. are evangelical. So we have the example of Levi being homeschooled and his mom being concerned that he'd be taught that creationism is wrong, so she pulled him out of public school. I also learned that in Kansas they must teach intelligent design along with evolution. So, did the film betray any biases? I feel like the film seems to paint a biased picture of evangelical Americans. I felt like it made them seem really fanatical. I mean, in the beginning we have kids in war paint doing war dances to Christian songs during their youth group time. and kids speaking in tongues, and at first glance it just sort of frightens you and startles you, and the average viewer might think all evangelicals are fanatics, and I'm sure that's not the case. So I feel like that was a bias that sort of occurred with the film. So what important things did I learn? I learned that there is a Christian flag, which has a Pledge of Allegiance to go along with it. It's a white flag with a blue square in the corner and a red cross. And one of the parents had their children pledge allegiance to the Christian flag, so I wasn't aware of that. I also learned that Colorado Springs has one of the greatest concentrations of evangelicals in the U.S., and many tourists visit its megachurches. So that's something new. What was the weakness of the film? I felt that the title was misleading. Jesus Camp, it's a great title, very shocking, like, Jesus Camp. But I felt like only a third of the film was actually about the camp. Like, the first third was kids preparing to go to camp and, seeing the lives of these campers before they head off to camp, and Pastor Becky's ministry, and then the other third was, visiting the mega church and protesting in D.C. So I feel like I was expecting it to be like all about the camp, and only about a third of the film was actually during the camp. So I felt the title was misleading. I feel like they should have been better about protecting the location of the film, because I read that shortly after it was released, a lot of people vandalized the camp, where the campsite where the Jesus Camp, the Kids on Fire camp was held, and Pastor Becky can no longer use it because the owners won't let her. So I feel like, regardless of whether or not we agree with what's taught at the camp, vandalism and harassment are not good, and that the filmmakers could have been better about hiding the location of the camp. So would I recommend this film? Yes. As a part of being politically active, I think it's important that we know about evangelical Christians, because they're a growing portion of our population, and they're now becoming important in politics. So if we want to be politically aware, it's important that we know about this faith. I didn't really understand what evangelical Christianity was until I watched this film, although this isn't all-encompassing teaching you about it, but it was very enlightening. Alright, so what are my reactions? I was very startled by all of the messages of sort of this theme of there being a war. It was stated that evangelicals are engaged in a culture war and will regain America for Christ. The radio show host Mike mentioned that it's sort of a mean-spirited message of us against them, and I agreed with that. It's just it doesn't seem very gentle or compassionate at all. In the beginning we have children dancing like warriors. It's just very startling. And it seemed like Becky was also very much against the Muslim faith. She mentioned, and quote, Muslims train their children from the time they are 5 years old to fast during the time of Ramadan, end quote. And that's her reasoning for encouraging children who are Christian to fast. And I just feel like, it's really flawed reasoning. We have to be better than them, and I have friends who are Muslim, and I don't know of any of them who have begun fasting at the age of 5, and most start around 7 or 8. I don't know about 5. Additionally, she said that she wants to see people who are as committed to the cause of Jesus Christ as the young people are to the cause of Islam, as if it's, us against them again. And she wants to see them as radically laying down their lives for the gospel. And it's just a little frightening, we have to be as good or better than them because they're the enemy. And that really startled me. But all in all, I thought it was a very good documentary, and I encourage you all to go see it. So thank you for your time.